The first verse. Just then a good for nothing named Sheba, son of Bichri, the Benjamite, blew a blast on the ram's horn's trumpet, calling out, "We've got nothing to do with David. There's no future for us with the son of Jesse. Let's get out of here, Israel. Head for your tents." So all the men of Israel deserted David again and followed Sheba, son of Bichri. But the men of Judah stayed committed, sticking with their king all the way from Jordan to Jerusalem. When David arrived home in Jerusalem, the king took the 10 concubines he had left to watch the palace and placed them in seclusion under guard. He provided for their needs but didn't visit them. They were virtual prisoners until they died, widows as long as they lived. And why would he do that? That wasn't their fault. He's the one that left them. You just make some bad decisions, David. The king ordered Amasa, "Muster the men of Judah for me in 3 days and report in." Amasa went to carry out his orders, but he was late reporting back. So David told Abishai, "Sheba, son of Bichri, is going to hurt us even worse than Absalom did. Take your master's servants and hunt him down before he gets holed up in some fortress city where we can't get to him." So under Abishai's command, all the best men, Joab's men, and the Kerethites and Pelethites left Jerusalem to hunt down Sheba, son of Bichri. They were near the boulder at Gibeon when Amasa came their way. Joab was wearing a tunic with a sheath sword strapped on his waist, but the sword flipped out and fell to the ground. Joab greeted Amasa, "How are you, my brother?" and took Amasa's beard in his right hand as if to kiss him. Amasa didn't notice the sword in Joab's other hand. Joab stuck him in the belly, and his gut spilled to the ground. A second blow wasn't needed. He was dead. Then Joab, his brother Abishai, continued to chase Sheba, son of Bichri. One of Joab's soldiers took up his post over the body and called out, "Everyone who sides with Joab and supports David, follow Joab." Amasa was lying in a pool of blood in the middle of the road. The man realized that the whole army was going to stop and take a look, so he pulled Amasa's corpse off the road into the field and threw a blanket over him so it wouldn't collect spectators. As soon as he'd gotten him off the road, the traffic flowed normally, following Joab in the chase after Sheba, son of Bichri. Sheba passed through all the tribes of Israel as far as Abel Beth Maacah. All the Bichrites clustered and followed him into the city. Joab's army arrived and laid siege to Sheba in Abel Beth Maacah. They built a siege ramp up against the city's fortification. The plan was to knock down the wall. But a shrewd woman called out from the city, "Listen, everybody, please tell Joab to come close so I can talk to him." When he had come, the woman said, "Are you Joab?" He said, "I am." Then she said, "Listen to what I have to say." He said, "I'm listening." There's no saying in these parts, if it's answers you want, come to Abel and get it straight. We're peaceful people here and reliable. And here you are trying to tear down one of Israel's mother cities. Why would you want to mess with God's legacy like that? Joab protested, "Believe me, you got me all wrong. I'm not here to hurt anyone or destroy anything, not on your life." But a man from the hill country of Ephraim, Sheba, son of Bichri by name, revolted against King David. Hand him over, him only, and we'll get out of here. The woman told Joab, "Sounds good. His head will be tossed to you from the wall." The woman presented her strategy to the whole city, and they did it. They cut off the head of Sheba, son of Bichri, and tossed it down to Joab. He then blew a blast on the ram's horn trumpet, and the soldiers all went home. Joab returned to the king in Jerusalem. Joab was again commander of the whole army of Israel. Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, was over the Kerethites and Pelethites, Adoniram over the work crews. Jehoshaphat, son of Heliod, was clerk. Sheba was historian. Zadok and Abiathar were priests. Ira the Jerite was David's chaplain. 2 Samuel 21, famine and war. There was a famine in David's time. It went on year after year after year, 3 years. David went to God seeking the reason. God said, "This is because there's blood on Saul in his house from the time he massacred the Gibeonites." So the king called the Gibeonites together for consultation. The Gibeonites were not part of Israel. They were part of what was left of the Amorites and protected by a treaty with Israel. But Saul, a fanatic for the honor of Israel and Judah, tried to kill them off. David addressed the Gibeonites, "What can I do for you? How can I compensate you so that you will bless God's legacy of land and people?" So Saul was a fanatic for honor of Israel and Judah, but yet you all say he was a bad king. The Gibeonites replied, "We don't want any money from Saul and his family. It's not up to us to put anyone in Israel to death." But David persisted, "What are you saying I should do for you?" Then they told the king, "The man who tried to get rid of us, who schemed to wipe us off the map of Israel, well, let 7 of his sons be handed over to us to be executed, hanged before God at Gibeah of Saul, the holy mountain." That's the holy mountain? And why would you kill the man's sons? And David agreed, "I'll hand them over to you." The king spared Mephibosheth, son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, because of the promise David and Jonathan had spoken before God. But the king selected Amoni, and Mephibosheth, the 2 sons that Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, had borne to Saul, plus the 5 sons that Saul's daughter Merab had borne to Adriel, son of Barzillai, the Moabite. He turned them over to the Gibeonites, who hanged them on the mountain before God. All 7 died together. Harvest was just getting underway, the beginning of the barley harvest, when they were executed. Rizpah, daughter of, that's almost like human sacrifice. Y'all are just really off track. Thank God for Jesus in the New Testament. That almost sounds like human sacrifice. Rizpah, daughter of Aiah, took rough burlap and spread it out for herself on a rock from the beginning of the harvest until the heavy rain started. She kept the birds away from the bodies by day and the wild animals by night. David was told what she had done, this Rizpah, daughter of Aiah and concubine of Saul. He then went and got the remains of Saul and Jonathan, his son, from the leaders at Jabesh Gilead, who had rescued them from the town square at Bethshan, where the Philistines had hung them after striking them down at Gilboa. He gathered up their remains and brought them together with the dead bodies of the 7 who had just been hanged. The bodies were taken back to the land of Benjamin and given a decent burial in the tomb of Kish, Saul's father. They did everything the king ordered to be done. That cleared things up. From then on, God responded to Israel's prayers for the land. War broke out against the Philistines in Israel. David and his men went down to fight. David became exhausted. Ishbi-Benob, a warrior descended from Rapha with a spear weighing nearly 8 pounds and outfitted in brand new armor, announced that he'd killed David. But Abishai, son of Zeruiah, came to the rescue, struck the Philistine, and killed him. Then David's men swore to him, "No more fighting on the front lines for you. Don't snuff out the lamp of Israel." Later there was another skirmish with the Philistines at Gob. That time Sibekah the Hushathite killed Saph, another of the warriors descended from Rapha. And yet another battle with the Philistines at Gob. Elhanan, son of Jair, the weaver of Bethlehem, killed Goliath the Gittite, whose spear was as big as a flagpole. At yet another battle with the Philistines at Gob, Elhanan, son of Jair, the weaver of Bethlehem, killed Goliath the Gittite, whose spear was as big as a flagpole. That must be another Goliath, because David killed Goliath. That must be another one. Still another fight broke out in Gath. There was a giant there with 6 fingers on his hands and 6 toes on his feet, 24 fingers and toes. He was another of those descended from Rapha. He insulted Israel, and Jonathan, son of Shimei, David's brother, killed him. These 4 were descended from Rapha in Gath, and they were killed by David and his soldiers. Okay, that makes sense. 2 Samuel 22. David prayed to God the words of this song after God saved him from all his enemies and from Saul. God is bedrock under my feet, the castle in which I live, my rescuing night, my God, the high crag, where I run for dear life, hiding behind the boulders, safe in the granite hideout, my mountaintop refuge. He saves me from ruthless men. I sing to God the praise lofty and find myself safe and saved. The waves of death crashed over me. Devil waters rushed over me. Hell's ropes cinched me tight. Death traps barred every exit. A hostile world I called to God. To my God I cried out. From his palace he heard me call. My cry brought me right into his presence, a private audience. Earth wobbled and lurched. The very heavens shook like leaves, quaked like aspen leaves because of his rage. His nostrils flared, billowing smoke. His mouth spit fire. Tongues of fire darted in and out. He lowered the sky. He stepped down. Under his feet an abyss opened up. He rode a winged creature, swift on wind wings. He wrapped himself in a trench coat of black rain cloud darkness. But his cloud brightness burst through, a grand comet of fireworks. Then God thundered out of heaven. The high God gave a great shout. God shot his arrows, pandemonium. He hurled his lightnings, a rout. The secret sources of the ocean was exposed. The hidden depths of earth lay uncovered. The moment God roared in protest, let loose his hurricane anger. But me he caught, reached all the way from sky to sea. He pulled me out of the ocean of hate, that enemy chaos, the void in which I was drowning. They hit me when I was down, but God struck me. God stuck by me, rather. He stood me up on an open, wide field. I stood there and was saved, surprised to be loved. God made my life complete when I placed all the pieces before him. When I cleaned up my act, he gave me a fresh start. Indeed, I've kept alert to God's ways. I haven't taken God for granted. Every day I review the way he works. I try not to miss a trick. I feel put back together. I'm watching my step. God rewrote the text of my life when I opened the book of my heart to his eyes. You stick by people who stick with you. You're straight with people who straight with you. You're good to good people. You shrewdly work around the bad ones. You take the side of the down and out, but the stuck up you take down a peg. Suddenly, God, your light floods my path. God drives out the darkness. I smash the bands of marauders. I vault the high fences. What a God, his road stretches straight and smooth. Every God direction is road tested. Everyone who runs towards him makes it. Is there any God like God? Are we not at bedrock? Is not this the God who armed me well? Then aim me in the right direction. Now I run like a deer. I'm king of the mountain. He shows me how to fight. I can bend a bronze bow. You protect me with salvation armor. You touch me and I feel 10 feet tall. You cleared the ground under me, so my footing was firm. When I chased my enemies, I caught them. I didn't let go till they were dead men. I nailed them. They were down for good. Then I walked over them. You armed me well for this fight. You smashed the upstarts. You made my enemies turn tail, and I wiped out the haters. They cried uncle, but uncle didn't come. They yelled for God and got no for an answer. I ground them to dust. They gusted in the wind. I threw them out like garbage in the gutter. You rescued me from a squabbling people. You made me a leader of nations. People I'd never heard of served me. The moment they got wind of me, they submitted. They gave up. They came trembling from their hideouts. Live, God, blessing to my rock, my towering salvation, God. This God sets things right for me and shut up the people who talk back. He rescued me from enemy anger. You pulled me up from the grip of upstarts. You saved me from the bullies. That's why I'm thanking you, God, all over the world. That's why I'm singing songs that rhyme your name. God's kings take the trophy. God's chosen is beloved. I mean David and all his children, always. 2 Samuel chapter 23. These are David's last words. The voice of the son of Jesse, the voice of the man of God to the top, whom God of Jacob made king, and Israel's most popular singer. I know he composed hymns, but didn't hear before that he was a singer. That's interesting. God's spirit spoke through me. His words took shape on my tongue. The rock God of Israel spoke to me. Israel's rock mountain said, whoever governs fairly and well, who rules in the fear of God, is like the first light at break date without first break date, is like first light at daybreak without a cloud in the sky, like green grass carpeting earth, glistening under fresh rain. And this is just how my regime has been, for God guaranteed his covenant with me, spelled it out plainly and kept every word promised. My entire salvation, my every desire. But the devil's henchmen are like thorns, cold and piled as trash. Better not try to touch them. Keep your distance like a rake or hoe. They'll make a glorious bonfire. This is a listing of David's top men. Josheb-Bathsheba, the Tahkemonite, was chief of the three. He once put his spear to work against 800, killed them all in a day. Eleazar, son of Dodai, the Hohite, was the next of the elite three. He was with David when the Philistines spoke fun at them at Pas Damim. When the Philistines drew up for battle, Israel retreated, but Eleazar stood his ground and killed Philistines right and left until he was exhausted, but he never let go of his sword. A big win for God that day. The army then rejoined Eleazar, but all that was left was to clean up. Shammah, son of Agi, the Herite, was the third of the three. The Philistines had mustered for battle at Lehi, where there was a field full of lentils. Israel fled before the Philistines, but Shammah took his stand at the center of the field, successfully defended it, and routed the Philistines. Another great victory for God. One day during the harvest, the three parted from the 30 and joined David at the cave of Adullam. A squad of Philistines had set up camp at the valley of Rephaim. While David was holed up in the cave, the Philistines had their base camp in Bethlehem. David had a sudden craving and said, would I ever like a drink of water from the well at the gate of Bethlehem? So the three penetrated the Philistine lines, drew water from the well at the gate of Bethlehem, and brought it back to David. But David wouldn't drink it. He poured it out as an offering to God, saying, there is no way, God, that I'll drink this. This isn't mere water. It's their lifeblood. They risked their very lives to bring it. So David refused to drink it. This is the sort of thing that the three did. Abishai, brother Joab, the son of Zeruiah, was the head of the 30. He once got credit for killing 300 with his spear, but he was never named in the same breath as the three. He was the most respected of the 30 and was their captain, but not included among the three. Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada from Kabzeel, was a vigorous man who accomplished a great deal. He once killed 2 lion cubs in Moab. Another time on a snowy day, he climbed down into a pit and killed a lion. Another time he killed a formidable Egyptian. The Egyptian was armed with a spear, and Benaiah went against him with nothing but a walking stick. He seized the spear from his grip and killed him with his own spear. These are the things that Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, is famous for, but neither did he ever get ranked with the three. He was held in the greatest respect among the 30, but he never got included with the three. David put him in charge of his bodyguard, the 30. The 30 consisted of Asiel, brother of Joab, Alhanan, son of Dodo, the Bethlehemite, Shammah, the Haradite, Elka, the Haradite, Elez, the Palatite, Ira, son of Ikish, the Tekoite, Ebiezer, the Anathothite, Sibbecai, the Hushathite, Zalman, the Ahawite, Mahara, the Netophaite, Heled of Banah, the Netophathite, Athai, son of Ribah from Gibeah of the Benjamites, Benaiah, the Perionathite, Hiddai from the Badlands of Gaash, Abi Alban, the Arbathite, Azamepha, the Barhumite, Elibah, the Shalabonite, Joshin, the Gizonite, Jonathan, son of Shuma, the Hararite, Ahim, son of Sharar, the Urite, Eliphet, son of Ahashai, the Makathite, Alam, son of Ithophel, the Gilonite, Hezro, the Carmelite, Pare, the Arbite, Agel, son of Nathan, commander of the army of the Hagrites, Zelek, the Ammonite, Naharai, the Beerothite, weapon bearer of Joab, son of Zariah, Ira, the Ithrite, Gerub, the Ithrite, Uriah, the Hittite, 37 all told. 2 Samuel 24. Once again, God's anger blazed out hot against Israel. Blazed out against Israel, didn't say hot. He tested David by telling him, go and take a census of Israel and Judah. So David gave orders to Joab and the army officers under him. Canvass all the I think some of y'all just putting that on God. Canvass all the tribes of Israel from Dan to Beersheba and get a count of the population. I want to know the number. But Joab resisted the king. May your God multiply the people by hundreds right before your eyes of my master, king. Why, the king, but why on earth would you do a thing like this? Nevertheless, the king insisted, and so Joab and the army officers left the king to take a census of Israel. They crossed the Jordan and began with the area of the town in the canyon of the Gadites near Jazer, proceeded through Gilead, past Hermon, then on to Dan, but toward Sidon. They covered Fort Tyre and all the Hivite and Canaanite cities, and finally reached the Negev of Judah at Beersheba. They canvassed the whole country, and after 9 months and 20 days arrived back in Jerusalem. Joab gave the results of the census to the king. 800,000 able-bodied fighting men in Israel, in Judah 500,000. Why are you distinguishing between the two? But when it was all done, David was overwhelmed with guilt because he had counted the people, replacing trust with statistics. And David prayed to God, I've sinned badly in what I've just done, but now God forgive my guilt. I've been really stupid. You've been doing a lot of stupid things in this book. When David got up the next morning, the word of God had already come to Gad the prophet, David's spiritual advisor. Go and give David this message. God has spoken thus. There are 3 things I can do to you. Choose one of the 3 and I'll see that it's done. Gad came to deliver the message. Do you want 3 years of famine in the land, or 3 months of running from your enemies while they chase you down, or 3 days of an epidemic on the country? Think it over and make up in your mind. What shall I tell the one who sent me? David told Gad, they're all terrible, but I'd rather be punished by God, whose mercy is great, than fall into human hands. So let God loose an epidemic from morning until supper time. From Dan to Beersheba, 70,000 people died. But when the angel reached out over Jerusalem to destroy it, God felt the pain of the terror and told the angel who was spreading death among the people, enough's enough, pull back. The angel of God had just reached the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. David looked up and saw the angel hovering between earth and skies, sword drawn, and about to strike Jerusalem. David and the elders bowed in prayer and covered themselves with rough burlap. When David saw the angel about to destroy the people, he prayed, please, I'm the one who sinned. I, the shepherd, did the wrong. But these sheep, what did they do wrong? Punish me and my family, not them. That same day, Gad came to David and said, go and build an altar on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. David did what Gad told him, what God commanded. Araunah looked up and saw David and his men coming his way. He met them, bowing deeply, honoring the king and saying, why has my master the king come to see me? To buy your threshing floor, said David, so I can build an altar to God here and put an end to this disaster. Oh, said Araunah, let my master the king take and sacrifice whatever he wants. Look, here's an ox for the burnt offering and threshing paddles and ox yokes for fuel. Araunah gives it all to the king, and may God your God act in your favor. But the king said to Araunah, no, I've got to buy it from you for a good price. I'm not going to offer God, my God, sacrifices that are no sacrifice. So David bought the threshing floor and the ox, paying out 50 shekels of silver. He built an altar to God there and sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings. God was moved by the prayers, and that was the end of the disaster. This is